Hey all, welcome to Monday, Easter Monday of 2022 for some folks. If you celebrate Easter, happy Easter to you. If not, then welcome to Monday. And this, of course, is Countdown Day here on the channel. And today's topic was one that was suggested by our buddy TF Fangeek, and I thought it was a good one. I was excited by this one, and it is the top 10 Heralds of Unicron. That's going to be our topic, our focus, that all of the voting was centered around. It's all been collected. It's all been counted. That's going to be our topic this time in the latest GotBot Counts Down. Hey all, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, your most humble of hosts, Dennis Moulton, aka GotBot. As always, man, please like, comment, share, of course, subscribe while you're at it, light 'em up, baby. And hit that notification bell, please. It helps me out a ton. It lets you know when content of all sorts goes up here on the channel. Check out Machinery of Man, The Everything Factor, all the groups that I'm either a mod or an admin for, as well as all of my social media links. All of that in the description down below. Also in the description down below. And if you're in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link. You can check us out on Patreon. You can see what we have to offer to you through spring. Or, of course, you can hit the join button right here on YouTube and become a channel member at any time, baby. And this is, like I said, as voted on by fans all across social media. All these lists are always done by votes across social media. It always goes from Wednesday to midnight on Friday. And this one was an interesting one. I wasn't even sure that there were 10, but as the voting started to unfold, I realized, man, there really are. Now, I don't necessarily have physical representations of all of these Heralds of Unicron, but I think it's interesting the way that it turned out. Of course, we're going to start things off with our honorable mention. We only have one honorable mention this time, and I find it funny because it's actually not a Herald of Unicron, even though it got some votes. I'm sure that they were joke votes, and it's the Silver Surfer. Now, for those that are scratching their heads wondering, why would the Silver Surfer get votes as a Herald of Unicron? It's a joke because Silver Surfer is a herald of Galactus, and the whole idea of the Heralds of Unicron apparently was born from the Heralds of Galactus. So, I said to a couple of people when they voted, I laughed and I said, wrong herald, right? And one person said back to me, I would say wrong planet eater, right? Being Galactus instead of Unicron. I get that. So the Silver Surfer technically is our honorable mention. Naturally, obviously, he did not make the list. So who did? We know what we're going to do. We're going to kick things off with number 10 of first. Number 10 takes us to a character that has actually been described as a spawn of Unicron, and it's Tarantulas. This is the 10th anniversary Tarantulas. I have a kind of an aside that I want to talk about here related back to last week's GotBot Goes Live. But Tarantulas, now, I believe it's the Nemesis storyline from Beast Wars. I don't know if it was part 1 or part 2. Was there part 3 to that one? I'm not sure. But at one point, Beast Wars Megatron says that he's the spawn of Unicron. And it's just sort of offhanded. And there's another point where there's an attempt to destroy the Ark, and Tarantula says, well, it wouldn't affect me anyway, because him and the Tripredacus Council, they have different origins, right? I think even in the Beast Wars Almanac or something, it says something like he has access to dark magic that dates back to the Chaos Bringer or something like that. Everything with Tarantulas is more implied than outright stated. It's worked around. It's something that's kind of underpinning everything to do with Tarantulas. Either way, he is maniacal. He is chaotic. He is he's cannibalistic. He's a mad scientist. Everything lines up with him being a spawn of Unicron. It makes sense. Is it part of a storyline that will ever be fully fleshed out? Who knows? But enough fans felt that Tarantulas deserved to be on this list as a Herald of Unicron, as a spawn of Unicron, as a minion of Unicron, that he was able to take the number 10 slot. Now, before we go on, like we normally do here, just a couple of quick notes that I want to make. Last week on GotBot Goes Live, I actually got a little hot under the collar because I reported that the upcoming, as of this recording, Legacy Tarantulas is going to be sharing parts with the Kingdom Black Arachnia. And I said, I'm out. I didn't like Black Arachnia, really. I don't. I'm not a fan. And I don't like parts being used here. And I think it was our buddy Nate, shout out to Nate, was asking me what parts, and he's like, I didn't hear that. And I was like, I'm telling you a fact. I don't know what parts. I didn't report what parts or part or whatever. I said, I know from a source that yes, without a doubt, as a fact, there is parts or a part or something being reused from Black Arachnia. I didn't know what it was. I can now confirm, and I'll probably do it again this Thursday night. I can now confirm that the part, apparently there's only one in question, is the, I don't know what you call it, the like spear gun thing. I don't know what you call it. Not a spear, crossbow thing. That's the only part. So it's the same crossbow thing. What about the actual character itself? I don't think any of those parts are reused now. I have asked my source and whatnot, and they're like, no, I'm pretty sure it's just that piece. So it looks like it's all going to be a new mold, which makes sense when you look at it. I would guess that it's going to share at least some of the engineering of Black Arachnia, much like Tigatron shared a lot of the engineering of Cheetor. It'll probably, hopefully, work better for Tarantulas than it did for Black Arachnia, but I'll say this is my 10th anniversary Tarantulas, and I look at the new one and I'm like, wow, that's a like brighter colored version, but it's really true to this. I don't think I particularly need it, but I'm not going to argue with people that want it. Because honestly, I think this body type for Tarantulas and the one that's coming up in Legacy, I think it's the best body type for Tarantulas. If you don't have this one specifically, if you don't have the 10th anniversary specifically, yeah, I do think you should probably get the Legacy, even though I personally have my gripes with it. Anyway, all of that aside, Tarantulas took the number 10 slot. Number 9 takes us, ironically, to the original 13 and this guy, Megatronus, or the Fallen. Yes, he was one of the original 13. However, if we follow, I think it's the War Within, which I believe pretty much uses this body type, the Fallen was basically trapped, I think like in an alternate universe, and because of a space bridge accident, and he ends up getting released, and he undergoes a ceremony that is meant, I think it's called the undoing, the unbinding, the unfurling, the unsomething. And the whole idea is that it will open the seal of Primus, which would allow Unicron to locate Primus and therefore destroy Primus and Cybertron. So at least in that one piece of fiction, at least in that story, he's not just kind of like the Judas of the Primes, if you will. He is, without a doubt, one of the Heralds of Unicron, and enough fans thought so, enough fans, I guess, remembered that story that the Fallen himself was able to take the number 9 slot. Number 8, I actually don't have a representation of, but fun fact, a couple of years ago, I actually did a giveaway of what number 8 is, but I didn't have a copy of it myself. I know, really weird, right? And number 8 is none other than Rodimus Unicronus. This is a version of Rodimus, or Hot Rod if you will, that really was inhabited by Dark Energon from Unicron and became evil, sort of like an embodiment of Unicron, so to speak. It was accomplished really through the manipulation and machinations of Overlord, who was also serving Unicron. This is a character and a storyline from the Prime Wars Trilogy series, specifically the Titans Return portion, where Hot Rod was taken advantage of. He became one of the Heralds of Unicron. He became a huge threat because he was imbued with that energy, imbued with that Dark Energon, and really worked kind of in concert, in hand with Overlord. It was a highlight of the Prime Wars trilogy, a piece of fiction that a lot of people consider to be lackluster, but this was a real bright spot in it. Enough fans remember old Rodimus Unicronus, who looks suspiciously like Shattered Glass Rodimus, I'm just saying, that he was able to take the number 8 slot. Number 7, I don't have any representation of as well, because there's never been any representation of this Harbinger, or I should say these Harbingers. Although, to be fair, there was the Collector Club version of Astro Train that came with 3 minicons that suspiciously bore the same name as these Heralds of Unicron. You might be figuring it out by now if you know that Astro Train. I'm talking, of course, about Hook, Line, and Sinker. That trio, they all kind of work together. They're from the planet Genix? I can't remember the name of the planet for sure, but it's one of the planets that Unicron destroyed. They tried to get away in a little spaceship, and Unicron found them and basically reformatted them into like assassins. One of them has, I think, a harpoon. That's probably Hook. Line has something in like a net. He has 2 things. And Sinker has like club hands, if I'm not mistaken. And their first mission under Unicron, according to the comic story All Fall Down from the Marvel portion way back when, was to find Galvatron, because Unicron's whole plan was for Galvatron to be like his main assassin. I don't think that really worked out, to be honest with you. But nevertheless, these three guys were probably the first, if not the first, they were certainly some of the earliest harbingers of Unicron. I couldn't count them as three separate ones because they always work in concert with one another. Hook, line, and sinker. They spell doom whenever they're around, and they took the number 7 slot. Coming in at number 6, we have a character who didn't necessarily follow Unicron by choice. He followed Unicron because of an addiction. I'm talking about G1 Thunderwing. As powerful as this guy was, as tied to the Matrix as this guy was, as in-depth of a storyline, as powerful, as much of a threat as he was, all of that. He really, according to Dreamwave, if you followed the Dreamwave comics, now this is the only fiction I really know that relates him to Unicron. There might be more, but this is the only one I know. But in the Dreamwave storylines, he's basically addicted to Dark Energon. That serves Unicron well, and he ends up kind of doing some of Unicron's dastardly deeds because Unicron feeds his addiction. It's a very dark version of this character. It's a very dark reasoning behind it. It's a very dark storyline, but doesn't that kind of match Thunderwing? Doesn't that kind of match Unicron? It makes sense. And Thunderwing came in at the number 6 slot. And now here we are once again at the most coveted of locations, the halfway mark. And at the halfway mark, we have one of the most classic harbingers of Unicron. One of the ones that I would say at least was represented first, and it's Scourge. Naturally, people voted for Scourge. He was reformatted. I mean, he was doomed. Thundercracker was done. He was toast. And thanks to Unicron, he got a new body. He got new minions, being the sweeps. He got a new lease on life and a new purpose. All in service of Galvatron, all in service of Unicron, all to destroy the Autobots and probably even the Decepticons and reign absolutely supreme. Hard to argue with getting a whole new lease on life, even if that's given to you by, in essence, the devil. Scourge comes in at the number 5 slot. Okay, now hear me out. There's a little caveat here because I'm sure that there are some people that are looking at number 5 and saying, yeah, but, I voted for Scourge and I meant the RID Scourge, the black truck guy. I get it. But any of the votes that came in for him went lumped in with this guy, Nemesis Prime. Now, there were different iterations of Nemesis Prime that got votes, including the RID 2001 Scourge, who I thought probably fit more appropriately with this guy. It's interesting because not all versions of Nemesis Prime would match. Not all versions of Nemesis Prime were harbingers of Unicron. In fact, very often the origins of Nemesis Prime differ from universe to universe to universe. But there are those where he is not only a evil Optimus Prime, but like he is an exact duplicate, and instead of having the Matrix of Leadership, he bores the Matrix of Chaos or the Matrix of Malice sometimes. Sometimes he is created by Unicron, sometimes he's created as a clone, sometimes he's just created by humans that are trying to mimic Optimus Prime. There's a lot of weird origins, but I can't argue that as much as Optimus Prime represents all that's good and right and heroic, and Primus himself, Nemesis Prime, represents everything that is bad and pestilence, war and pain, and Unicron himself. It makes total sense that Nemesis Prime, in any of the versions that actually match, comes in at the number 4 slot. Number 3, I don't have a version of, but boy do I wish that I did. This is an agent of Unicron who hails from Planet X. He has the ability to heal even the most grievous of damages. He is nigh on invincible. He can take any form he wants when he calls on Unicron's powers, and his loyalty to his master is pretty much unwavering. He delights in being a deceitful liar. He delights in playing his victims for a fool and seeing the terror on their face. Of course, I'm talking about one of the most dangerous and one of the most evil of all Transformers characters. He who often allies with the Decepticons. He who is a ninja warrior. I'm talking, of course, about Sideways. And this takes us, of course, to the Unicron trilogy. I don't know a whole lot about Sideways other than every time he appears, whether it's on screen or in comics or wherever, that Sideways is bad news. He's a bad dude. And you know that if Sideways is there, that Unicron is not far behind, which is always bad news. Everything he does is not for himself. It's in service of like his great master. It's in service of making sure that Unicron can not only rule the entire universe, but feed upon it at will and bring his chaos across everything. Hard to deny a character that has that much loyalty to Unicron along with that much power. Sideways, I thought honestly he was going to take number 1, but he did take the number 3 slot. Number 2 takes us back to G1, and I think it was a foregone conclusion that this guy was probably going to appear on the list, and it's Cyclonus. Now, Cyclonus' loyalty obviously is to Galvatron, but in a roundabout way, it's also to Unicron. More so Galvatron for sure, but he was definitely much the same boat as Scourge. Whether you believe it's Bombshell or whether you believe it's supposed to be Skywarp, again, the animation says one thing and the writers say another. So let's defer and say that even though the animation says Bombshell, let's say it's Skywarp just for good measure today. I'm in a good mood. What do you want? Whatever one it is, they were toast. Whether it's Bombshell or whether it's Skywarp, they were toast, just like Thundercracker was. This was a new lease on life. This was a new chance to kind of come back, to reign again, to get revenge on the Decepticons that abandoned them, to come back with a new, more powerful, more robust body, with a new, sleek jet. Everything was new, everything was fresh, and it was all thanks to making a deal with the devil. How can you argue with this guy being one of the most significant, most prolific Heralds of Unicron? Enough fans felt that way that Cyclonus took the number 2 slot. And here we are at number 1. Number 1. And this is a Herald of Unicron who was very belligerent and didn't like to take orders naturally. I think most people would say that the absolute most prolific Herald of Unicron, whether he wanted to work for Unicron or not, would have to be Galvatron. Neither the mentality of Megatron nor Galvatron had any use in servicing Unicron. Hated it, did not like being subservient. In fact, some people even noted, what about the Transformers Prime Megatron? He was also a Herald of Unicron and forced to serve Unicron, right? This is the same sort of thing. Here's the thing. Whether it's the, say, Transformers Prime Megatron, whether it's Galvatron, he was made subservient. He was made to, I guess, do the will of his master. With Galvatron's case, I mean, if he didn't listen to Unicron, he was basically put in pain, right? Unicron would basically hurt him. Same thing was done with Transformers Prime Megatron, by the way. But this guy hated serving Unicron so much that he actually got the Matrix and put it on a chain and wore it because it was the only thing that Unicron feared. And he felt like if he had that, at least it gave him a heads up over his master. Yes, he would call him his master, but it was very, unwilling? It was very uncooperative. It was very Galvatronish, to be quite frank. Again, he was given a new lease on life. He was toast. He was done. It was over. But even when he was given that new lease on life, he was not grateful for it. I've always found it somewhat poetic, though, that Galvatron, or Transformers Prime Megatron, would end up servicing Unicron. We always know that Megatron's motto is peace through tyranny, where everyone services him, where he is the leader, and now the leader becomes a servant. I always thought that there was a deeper meaning there of, learning what it's like now to be taken advantage of, to be ruled over, And the Transformers Prime one really took that to its full fruition. This guy just lived in bitter insanity going forward. Because remember, he did have that lava bat. Yeah, Galvatron, the number 1 Herald of Unicron. And there you go, we've got from 10 down to 1 more time here. And who else got some votes? Because there were some other great ones. Universe Ramjet naturally got some votes. I think everybody knew that that was going to happen. Bludgeon did. The Transformers Prime Megatron did. I didn't lump him in with Galvatron, but I did think it was a nice kind of parallel to that Galvatron. Who else did? Oh, the Horsemen. The 4 Horsemen. I think it's the mole. I think the mole's used might have been Rhinox, Air Razor, Cheetor, and Pterosaur, but I think the names that they were given were like War, Pestilence, Famine, and Death, right? But I think it was those molds. Dirge would be another one. Dynamis from the Golden Disc cards, as well as Dark Arachnia from the Golden Disc cards. Ultra Magnus, IDW Shockwave, Overlord, Ghost Starscream, who kinda did, but really he more manipulated Unicron, because I mean, that's what Starscream does. I thought one of the best lines in all of Transformers was when Ghost Starscream says to Unicron, well, I can't connect your head to Cybertron to give you a new body. I'm a ghost. You got to give me a new body. And Unicron's like, yeah, that makes sense. And he gives him a new body, and then what does Starscream do? Looks at Unicron's head and says, yeah, do it yourself, and throws it down and goes away. Like, I thought that was so classically Starscream. And the last one who got a vote as a Herald of Unicron was yours truly, me. Yeah, somebody gave me a vote, I guess because I'm a cranky old crank. Let me know if your favorites made the list. I appreciate you guys coming by, giving me some of your extremely valuable time. I do know how important it is to you. If you're in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link. You can check us out on Patreon. You can see what we have to offer to you through Spring, or of course you can hit the join button right here on YouTube and become a channel member. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Stick around, have some fun with us here on the channel. And especially don't forget that somehow, some way, each and every single solitary day, you right there, you do make a difference in the world. And I look forward to the next time that you and I get together to have another visit, either in the live streams on Thursday nights, at the stop motion premieres, or the old fashioned way right here inside the videos.